Hello, my name is Donald Rencher. I'm the Director of Housing and Revitalization for the City of Detroit. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar about applying for Neighborhood Opportunity Funds. I really thank you for your applications and your participation.
Hi, my name is Tamara Fontaine Hardy. I am the Director of the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund Division in the Housing and Revitalization Department. I will be reviewing the CDBG threshold criteria. CDBG has a 30-year history of the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. Public services comprise 15% of the annual HUD allocation, and it services low, moderate income individuals. First, we'll review the threshold criteria. The threshold criteria is the same for public service and public facility rehab. Number 1, you must meet HUD National Objective. 2, groups must attend the CDBG NOF workshop or view the workshop online. 3, proposals must be complete and submitted by the deadline and on the correct form. 4, you must have at least 5 members on your board, which meet at least biannually. 5, you must have a federal tax exempt status. That's 501c3, 501c19, etc., prior to applying for the proposal. 6, organizations must have been in operation at least 2 years and have operating proof. 7, you must not have any unresolved government audits and monitoring problems, which are taxes or legal status or anything of that nature. 8, you must submit your most recent fiscal year cash flow statement, your financial statement, if available, or your recent audit. 9, you must read and sign the certification form. 10, you must submit your current nonprofit corporation information update, which is your Michigan Annual Nonprofit Report. 11, you must submit certification of good standing and the certification or articles of incorporation. And number 12, applicants' organizations must provide proof of operating cash on hand, and that means you must have at least 7% of the request in a bank account on hand at the time of application.
Hi, my name is Warren T. Duncan. I represent the City of Detroit Housing and Revitalization Department. I am the Director of the Reporting and Compliance section. I'm here to give you an overview of the Consolidated Plan. In this presentation, I will cover Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan, fast facts about the CDBG program, federal regulations governing the CDBG program, and proposal activity requirements. The Consolidated Plan, Strategy, and Annual Action Plan. It's a 2-documents guide consolidated plan funding. It has a 5-year strategy and the Annual Action Plan. HUD must review and approve these plans before the City of Detroit receives funds or any recipients expend funds. Let's talk about the Consolidated Plan. The Consolidated Plan is a 5-year strategy that analyzes existing conditions and identifies and prioritizes the following needs: affordable housing needs, community development needs, that's our economic development, needs of vulnerable persons and families, that's our seniors, our frail, elderly, and our homeless. It guides us to the 4 programs: Community Development Block Grant Program, that's our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, has our Home Investment Partnership, our Emergency Solutions Grant, that's our ESG, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, HOPWA. The plan is due every 5 years, 45 days prior to the end of the city's fiscal year. Let's talk about our action plan. The action plan is due 45 days prior to the end of the city's fiscal year. It acts as the city's application to HUD to receive annual consolidated plan program funds. Without submitting the plan, the city will forfeit its annual allocation. It also implements the strategies, goals, and objectives of the consolidated plan. The CDBG program Fast Facts. It was authorized under the Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. It was funded through annual appropriations by the U.S. Congress. Allocations are made to states, urban counties, and entitled local governments based on a formula devised by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. As you can see on this side, the City of Detroit allocation were well over $40 million. Today, we're just barely over $30 million. It is suggested to start collaborating together to continue efforts in the community. The CDBG program is governed by the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 24, Part 570. All activities funded through the CDBG program must pass a two-pronged test. It must first demonstrate in compliance with a national objective. Also, it must meet the definition of an eligible activity. The CDBG program federal regulation must first meet one of three national objectives. It must either benefit low to moderate income person, prevent or eliminate slums and blight, or it must meet an urgent need. 70% of all CDBG funds must meet the low and mod national objective. Most of you will qualify under the low and moderate income person national objective. Benefit to low and moderate income person includes several subcategories. The main two used are limited clientele activity. 51% or more of the persons benefit from the activity qualify as low and moderate income household. The limited clientele activity, 51% or more of the persons benefiting from the activity qualify as low and moderate income household. Some of you are qualified under presumed benefit, which are homeless, elderly, battered spouse, severely disabled adults, abused children, illiterate persons, and persons with AIDS. That will all qualify under presumed benefit. Also, there is area benefit activities. Low moderate area. 51% of the more of the person residing in the service area qualify as low and moderate income household. The area must be residential. Although the federal regulations identify a number of eligible activities, this year the city will focus on the following eligible activities seen on this slide. Remember, applicants must submit and complete a proposal online in BidSync by the following date listed on this slide.
In March 2015, the City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement introduced to staff BidSync training. BidSync is our e-procurement system for the City of Detroit. After extensive training with a number of city departments and procurement staff, in April 2015, we went live with BidSync, procuring all items for the City of Detroit. The Housing and Revitalization Department is introducing you now to BidSync. BidSync is where all of your proposals will be submitted for the Community Development Block Grant Program. As a part of BidSync, your organization will register. To do so, you'll go to www.bidsync, and BidSync is spelled BIDSYNC.com. Once there, you will have an opportunity to identify the name of your organization in the registration process, a contact person by name and title, telephone number, address, and most importantly, email address contact. You may have more than one contact for your organization in BidSync. There will be a primary contact. If only one contact is identified, that will be your primary contact. There is no limit to the number of contacts your organization may have in BidSync. On the City of Detroit official website, there are video tutorials and a PowerPoint slide presentation. That will take you step by step through the registration process. And for those of you who are eager to learn more, there is also a step-by-step process identified showing you how to place an offer in BidSync, and once you place an offer, how to navigate to determine what attachments you need to place with your proposal as you're writing your application for the Community Development Block Grant. Take the time now to explore BidSync to determine how comfortable you and your organization staff will be in the procurement process. There are several things that are going to be needed in order for you to complete your registration so that you will be able to access the request for proposals in BidSync. There will be 4 for each of the funded categories under the Community Development Block Grant Program. You will need your City of Detroit required affidavits: the Slavery Error Disclosure Affidavit, the Hiring Policy Compliance Affidavit, the Covenant of Equal Opportunity Affidavit, and finally, a new affidavit introduced in July 2015, the Political Contributions Affidavit. There are 2 clearances that are required by the City of Detroit for all suppliers who are providing services or commodities to the city. One is your income tax clearance. Secondly, your accounts receivable clearance. The income tax clearance has a 12-month expiration date. If you already have a clearance that has not expired by the time of your submission for your proposal, you may simply upload that clearance into BidSync under your organization's profile page. The 6-month accounts receivable clearance may have already expired since you entered into a contract or submitted a proposal to the city for a previous bid. If that is the case, take the time now to apply for the accounts receivable clearance through our Revenue Collections Division of the Finance Department for the City of Detroit. That clearance is relatively easy to receive. Make certain that if there are any property taxes that your organization may be responsible for, that those have been taken care of before you apply for the clearance. During the registration process, if you run into any particular difficulties with technology, you may call BidSync at 1-800-990-9339. You may leave a message if you do not speak to a live operator, but the customer service at BidSync is very accessible during daylight hours. You may also send an email request for assistance through BidSync, and all of that will be available regardless of where you are in the BidSync system on the top right-hand portion of each page in BidSync. We look forward to you preparing complete proposals for evaluation. You will submit attachments in BidSync as appropriate. Those attachments will include, for example, the minutes of the Board of Directors meetings for your organizations. They may include the list and roster of the Board of Directors. They're similar items that you have completed when you've done previous proposals for the Community Development Block Grant program. The only thing that's different is that you are now submitting your proposal in BidSync. Each of the category areas in BidSync will have a different proposal number. So if your organization is planning to submit multiple proposals, be sure that you access each of the appropriate requests for proposals that will be posted in BidSync. I will be available by email and telephone to answer any of your questions regarding the request for proposal in BidSync. My contact information will be available to you in BidSync on the request for proposal first page. It will be at the bottom left-hand portion. You will see my name, my email address, and a contact telephone number. We ask that you refrain from contacting Housing and Revitalization Department staff during the procurement process because there is a question and answer segment that is attached to each request for proposal in the BidSync system. So we ask you to post your questions, and within a short period of time, we will answer those questions. If we deem that it's necessary for a response to come directly from the Housing and Revitalization Department, we will submit via email your question to the appropriate staff. We will then post their answer in BidSync in that Q&A section. We know that this is a new process for you, and we understand that you will have a bit of a learning curve. And so again, we encourage you to take the time to explore the BidSync system, use the tutorials, and by all means necessary, get registered in BidSync as soon as possible. Do not wait for the announcement of the request for proposal. So while you are viewing this webinar, you have the opportunity at this point in time, if you have not already registered, to make haste and do so. You would have already received from our office an email advising you to begin your registration process in BidSync. So if you looked over that email and decided it was not immediately important, it is very important if you're viewing this webinar to register ASAP.
Now, let's talk about the public service application process. Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. What is it? Since 1976, City Council has provided grants for non-comprehensive neighborhood improvement projects proposed by neighborhood organizations and neighborhood service organizations through the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program. This program, which is a part of the city's Community Development Block Grant program, have provided funds for public services to improve the social condition of low-income residents in the city of Detroit. What is public service? In this case, it is services provided to the community by a nonprofit organization. Those services include recreation, shelter, food bags, youth tutoring, prescriptions, legal services, safety, dental services, and health services, just to name a few. There are 5 broad categories or priorities that neighborhood opportunity funds can be utilized for: education, public safety, health, youth recreation, and seniors. Funding requirements include all funding for public service activities must meet the HUD National Objective, a benefit to low, moderate income persons, as articulated under 24 CFR .570.200. Eligible program participants must meet HUD's definition of basic public service activities as articulated under 24 CFR 570.201. To be eligible for CDBG assistance, a public service must either be a new service or a quantifiable increase in the level of an existing service. Definition of income eligibility includes the definition of household income for the purpose of this program is based on low, moderate income criteria. However, HUD's Section 8 income eligibility standards has always been used as a measure for CDBG activities. A Section 8 income calculation based on this definition and further guidance can be found at http://webapps1.hud.gov/HFC/calculator. Ineligible costs for all CDBG public service programs: pre-contract costs, back taxes, proposal costs, debts, late charges, penalties, excessive travel expense, improperly procured purchases, undocumented mileage charges, gifts and donations, staff recruitment, facilities, equipment depreciation, costs associated with the organization rather than the specific program. Any costs associated with advertisements, pamphlets and surveys, etc., staff training, entertainment, conferences or retreats, public relations, advertising or fundraising, payments for bad debts, indirect organization costs, rental assistance in any unit in which the subrecipient or subsidiary has 1% or more ownership interest in the property, lobbying at partisan political activities, and suing the government. Requested ranges. Public service requests must be a minimum of $100,000. Your detailed project description must include what specific services are to be provided, when and how these services will be provided, who will be assisted, and what number of persons will be assisted. Describe how the activity will be implemented, operated, and administered, what major equipment, special events, field trips, or like components are necessary to operate the project, what and how many workers by job title will plan, supervise, and monitor project performance. If volunteers are used, how many and what will they do? If contract workers are used, state how many will be used and describe their duties. The project description provides an estimate of the number of individuals or the number of households needing the project services in the selected project area, the number of individuals, the number of households. The detailed project description should provide a detailed description of the proposed project, including how it will be implemented and plans for continued operations. We ask that you keep that to 1-page minimum with a 12-point font. The NOF funding request. What are your reasons for requesting CDBG NOF funding for this activity? Continuing existing CDBG NOF funded public service project, to prevent reduction or existing service levels due to increased costs, Or is it to expand or add to existing services levels to meet unmet demand or increased needs? Your NOF funding request, what are your reasons for requesting CDBG funds for this activity? Is it to create a new activity to meet a gap in existing services? Are you trying to replace a loss or other funding to existing programs? Are you matching or leveraging another funding source? Are you replacing volunteer efforts? If there's other reasons, please explain. Self-sufficiency. What are the steps your organization is taking to move your service population to self-sufficiency? How do you plan to sustain the program when funding ends? Project activity objectives. What will your program accomplish? Where will your program activity or target population be when the grant or contract period is complete? We'd like to see completed improvement or phase, improved child rearing, improved how families make decisions, etc. is what we're looking for in that area. Intake. What is your intake process? How do you register, enroll, or initiate services for your clients? We'd like to see how you register at your first visit. If you have in-home visits, is it by referral, etc. Who are you serving? We would also like to see what percentage of participants are low to moderate income. How do you document this income? What percentage of your clients are Detroit residents? How do you document that participants meet the residency requirement? These are all yes or no questions. Fees. Does your organization charge fees for your services? If so, how much? Do you waive those fees for those unable to pay? Publicity. Getting the word out about your program. Is it done by newsletter or flyer, signs, requests for referrals, word of mouth, other? Please indicate on the application. What are your hours of operation? Is it year-round operation? How many hours, what days? Will hours change with new CDBG NOF funds? Equally important is similar services. Are there any other organizations that provide a similar service in your service area? What unmet need is being addressed through your program? And where in your program can you demonstrate innovation? Community service. What community support do you have for this program? How do you relate to the community and the location of your project? How do you involve other community organizations and/or residents? In what ways is your organization collaborating or partnering with other organizations? Describe specific actions undertaken in conjunction with other community organizations to deliver the services for which funding is being sought. Share staff or office space. Building information. Please complete one form for each site you operate from. Is your facility ADA compliant? If no, what are you doing about it? Outputs and activities. Outputs are the direct products of program operation, measured in terms of the volume or work accomplished. Think of outputs as the products or program activities or the result of program processes. They are the deliverables. Some even use the term interchangeably with activities. Outputs can be identified by answering questions such as, what will the program produce? What will the program accomplish? For example, the number of classes taught, the number of counseling sessions conducted, or the number of participants served. Outputs should lead to a desired benefit for the participants. What are your outcomes? Outcomes are changes in program participants or recipients, also known as the target population. They can be identified by answering the question, How will program participants change as a result of their participation in the program? It may relate to changes in knowledge, attitudes, values, skills, participant behavior, condition, or other attributes. Examples of program outcome include greater knowledge of nutritional needs, improved reading skills, more effective responses to conflict, getting a job, and/or having greater financial stability. Agencies must clearly state the methodology used to measure outcomes. It can be through surveys, client interviews, pre- and post-test results, or clients' self-monitoring. Impacts. Impacts assess the changes that can be attributed to a particular intervention, such as a program or policy, both the intended ones as well as, ideally, the unintended ones. Impacts can be short-term, intermediate, or long-term. Short-term impacts, which are generally 1 year, describe the initial impact during the client's first year of participation in the program. Intermediate impacts, which are generally 2 years, describe the subsequent impact on the client population that is anticipated as a result of their participation in the program, if applicable. And long-term impacts, which are generally 3 to 5 years or more, describe the eventual impact on the client population that is anticipated as a result of their participation in the program. You'll see an example of the activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts, which give you an idea of what we are looking for and how you should complete the form. Outputs and outcomes. If the proposed activity is already in existence, what were its outputs for the most recently completed fiscal year? What are the outputs for the proposed activity in the current fiscal year? Define each unit of service that is an element of the program to be funded by CDBG NOF, how this unit is measured, and how many you provided in the most recently completed fiscal year. What standards, measures, benchmarks are used to assure or verify that your program is a qualified, successful program. Next, we'll go over the application sections. The organizational information, the project description, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts, and your budget.
Finally, let's summarize the CDBG NOF workshop webinar. Remember, all proposal applicants must register in BidSync. All 3 applications are online in BidSync. BidSync is the only avenue to submit your CDBG NOF applications. Paper copies will not be accepted. For more information on BidSync system, go to the website at www.bidsync.com or call 313-224-1500. Here are the requirements. Make sure your proposal meets a HUD National Objective. Make sure your activity is HUD eligible. Make sure your proposal is complete with all necessary attachments. Get your proposal submitted on time. Use the online materials for help with your proposal. For more information, to access workshop materials, go to www.detroitmi.gov/HRD and click on Public Notices. The deadline to submit application via BidSync is at the following date. This concludes the CDBG proposal webinar. Thank you.